You did everything right. You worked harder than most people around you. You made the sacrifices. You hit the targets. You got the title, the income, and the recognition. And then one day, maybe on a Tuesday morning, driving to an office you worked years to reach, you felt absolutely nothing. Not gratitude, not pride, not even relief. Just a quiet emptiness that didn't make any sense. And the most dangerous part? You couldn't tell anyone. Because from the outside, you had everything. Admitting that everything didn't feel like enough made you sound ungrateful, weak, or broken. So, you did what high performers always do. You set a new target. This is one of the most common, yet least talked about, experiences of ambitious people. It is not failure. It is not burnout in the obvious sense. It is something much quieter and far more unsettling. The feeling that you finally arrived, and the arrival meant nothing. Psychologists call it the arrival fallacy. It is the stark gap between what you imagined reaching a goal would feel like and what it actually feels like when you get there. But the Bhagavad Gita identified this problem 5,000 years before modern psychology ever had a name for it. And the answer it gives is not what most people expect. It doesn't tell you to want less. It doesn't tell you to just be grateful. It doesn't even tell you that ambition is the problem. It tells you that you have been chasing the wrong thing and mistaking it for the right one. Here is the Gita's diagnosis. Most people build their entire sense of self on what ancient texts call Ahamkara, the ego identity. This is the constructed version of you made entirely of external markers. Your title, your income, your reputation, and your place in the hierarchy. This version of you is not false in the sense of being dishonest. It is false in the sense of being temporary. Every external marker that defines you can be taken away by a market shift, a corporate restructure, or a single decision by someone above you. When you tie your sense of self to something impermanent, your peace becomes just as impermanent. The Taittiriya Upanishad describes 5 layers of human existence called the Pancha Kosha. You have the physical body, the energy body, the mental body, and the wisdom body. But at the deepest layer lies the Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss sheath. This is the layer of pure being that exists beneath everything you have built, everything you have achieved, and everything you have become. The emptiness you feel at the top is not evidence that you chose the wrong career. It is not evidence that you need a bigger goal. It is simply the gap between the layer of self you have been feeding and the layer of self you have been completely ignoring. You have been building the outer layers, while the innermost one has been waiting. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most alive. Most of them probably had absolutely nothing to do with achievement. A conversation where time completely disappeared. A moment in nature where your mind finally went quiet. A piece of work where you forgot yourself entirely and the creativity just moved through you. A moment with someone you love where nothing needed to be said. None of those moments required a title. None of them required a result or external confirmation. They were full entirely on their own. That fullness is Anandamaya Kosha. It is not something you build toward. It is something you uncover. And the reason high achievers rarely feel it is not because they work too hard. It is because every single moment of quiet that might lead them there, they immediately fill with another target. The Gita addresses this directly in chapter 2. Krishna tells Arjuna, the soul is never born nor dies at any time. It is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. Read that not as a religious statement, but as a practical one. There is a part of you that no promotion can touch, no failure can diminish, no market can price, and no restructure can eliminate. This is the most stabilizing truth available to a person who has built their identity on things that can be taken away. Because the moment you locate that part of yourself, the emptiness changes. It stops being terrifying. It becomes a signal, a compass pointing inward instead of upward. So why do high achievers resist this so deeply? Because inward feels unproductive. Because stillness feels like falling behind. The entire architecture of a high-performance life is built on constant movement and the next milestone. And the Gita is asking you to stop, not permanently and not passively, but just long enough to ask the question that your achievement has been drowning out. Who are you when there is nothing left to prove? The Kena Upanishad points to this directly, that which is not thought by the mind, but by which the mind thinks. Know that alone as reality. In other words, the real you is not the one doing the thinking. It is the awareness behind the thinking, not the achiever, not the title, and not the track record. You are the witness. This is not an invitation to stop achieving. The Gita was written for a warrior on a battlefield. It does not tell Arjuna to put down his bow. It tells him to pick it up, but to fight from a completely different place inside himself. Not from fear, not from ego, and not from a desperate need to prove something. Pick it up from clarity, from duty, from the part of you that knows who you are, independent of the outcome. That is the ultimate shift. Not less ambition. Differently rooted ambition. Ambition that doesn't need the arrival to feel whole, because the wholeness was never at the destination to begin with. The emptiness at the top is an invitation to stop building outward long enough to discover what has been there the entire time. You are not empty because you achieved too little. You are empty because you have been looking for yourself in places where you were never going to be found. The Gita has always known where you are. The question is whether you are ready to look there. Win the inner war.